We are going to start with a new topic today, which is probity in governance, and this is a very interesting topic. Forms a part of our ethics syllabus. One of the very important unit of ethics syllabus is governance, probity in governance, and we will see what is the meaning of probity, what is governance, how probity is ensured in governance, then also the philosophical basis of probity and governance. Then we will look into transparency and information sharing, why it is important, what is the role of citizen charter, right to information act, what is the role of work culture, and how the utilization of public funds must be done by the executive and the other parts of the government. So this is a whole thing. One more topic, corruption, comes into this, the elements of corruption. We will see it separately because it's a big topic and a big problem in our country. So the topic of corruption will be taken up in the next class, where we will see corruption in all parts of the governance. Judiciary, we will see it in executive, legislature, the political executive and the permanent bureaucracy, how corruption emerges, what is the origin of corruption and what are the outcomes of corruption and what are the types of corruption. We will see everything in the next class, but for this class we will focus our attention on probity in governance. So what do you mean by the word probity? So probity in a way does not have a standalone definition of its own. Probity is the combination of many ingredients such as accountability, such as integrity, such as honesty, transparency, impartiality. The most important element is characterfulness and uprightness. If the officer who is sitting in a post, who is discharging his duties as a, let's say, collector or a secretary of a department, if he is not upright, if he is not characterful, then how can we expect probity in governance? How can we expect accountability and transparency and impartiality in governance? For accountability and impartiality, which are very important for a corruption-free society, for a corruption-free polity, where there is absence of graft, where there is rule of law, the most important element which comes up is a person who is sitting on a post must take the responsibility of their actions. That simply means accountability. And whatever actions which are taken must not be in secrecy, but they must be transparent. You know, the public must know about it. Even issues which are exempted, let's say, which are not shared in the public, once they become the issues of public importance, it must be shared with the public also. So this is how accountability and transparency and other elements in the efficiency and effectiveness in the governance is ensured, and cannot be ensured until a person is upright and characterful. So probity in a way is the quality which combines all these elements within it. And if such a person sits on a post, if such a person is running the governance, automatically the governance will be ethical governance. Okay. So before delving into probity even more, let's understand this meaning of governance. What is governance? So we have a government, established government in India, and you know the system, we all go and vote. We have several kind of voting, starting from the village panchayats and the local municipalities till the member of parliaments. Okay, let's take the example, we have member of parliaments, and we elect the members of Lok Sabha from different constituency. They come, they sit down and they make law. There is a council of minister, the head of that council of minister becomes the prime minister. He is the head of the government that runs, he makes the policies, the cabinet makes the policies, and the whole cabinet, the whole council of minister is responsible to the legislature. This is the responsible type of government, which is also called as the parliamentary form of government in India. So when we have this parliamentary form of government, where the element of responsibility is a necessity, executive's responsibility on the legislature, then it becomes a very strong form of government. The permanent executive, the IAS officers and the whole bureaucracy are responsible to the political executive. That means the members of the parliament who have become the member of the council of minister and are now ministers holding the portfolios, and they are working for the betterment of the country in making policies and schemes and running the governance, taking big decisions, holding cabinet posts. So the executive, which is permanent, the bureaucracy is dependent on this political executive. The political executive in turn is dependent on the legislature. The legislature has a responsibility, it is dependent on the vote of the people. So people are sovereign in India. So this is how this chain of accountability, the chain of responsibleness is there in a parliamentary form of government which is practiced in India. Now this is how the government is formed. The whole system, when it is in action, is known as governance. So I hope I have given you a very simplified definition. When this whole system of government is in action, that's called governance. Now there can be efficient governance and there can be inefficient governance. The governance can have different aspects. You can have more better and efficient governance. It is said that smaller states have better governance compared to bigger states, such as India. It's a huge country, but that is not the case. It is always how the officers who are running the governance, the politicians who are running the government, and the instrument through which the government is run, if they are ethical, then the foundation of that governance would be efficient and effective. Does not matter whether the state is a small state or a bigger state. I hope you understand. So governance is the political system, the executive system, even the judiciary and parliament. That simply means our legislatures. When this whole system is in action, this is called as governance. Now that action can be a flop movie and then action can be a super hit movie. That simply means this action can be inefficient or this action can be very efficient. So lot much goes into what is efficiency. What if a system is efficient but not ethical or not impactful or effective? We have a democracy. There are autocracies also where one person rules the country, and it is also seen, if we see the history very closely, that such government where autocracy is running, the system is more efficient. So can we say that as the best form of governance? Can we say the ultimate goal of governance is only efficiency? No, it is not. This efficiency has to be clubbed with effectiveness and morality. There has to be whatever work you are doing, whatever policy you are implementing, first it has to be implemented very efficiently. That simply means if the system is corruption free, there is no favoritism or red tapeism and the people sitting are meritorious, then the effectiveness can be ensured. But at the same time, the instrument through which these policies are being run, the instrument through which the governance is run also has to be ethical. Okay. So to ensure efficient governance and ethical governance, the most important element has to be the uprightness and characterfulness of the officers who are running the government. Okay. So this is what is probity. In a simpler way we see, probity will trickle down to few important ingredients such as uprightness, characterfulness, accountability, integrity and honesty, similarly impartiality and other important elements which are there. So probity is a combined effect of all these important qualities, and when these qualities are there in an officer and these qualities are also there in the instrument of governance, then the governance will be ethical, and when the governance is ethical, it is called as probity in governance. That while running the system, while the system is in action, it is effective, it is efficient and it is ethical. And why it is efficient, ethical and effective? Because the officers who are running it and the instrument through which the governance is run has the characteristic of uprightness, accountability, impartiality, integrity, honesty and characterfulness in officers. That is called as probity in governance. So it's a simple topic, you see. I think I have made it clear to you all. Now let us move to another topic. Now, one more thing, let us see the outcome of probity. If there is probity in governance, what will be the outcome? What will be the outcome of probity in governance? The outcome, the two major outcome would be, there will be absence of graft. What is the opposite of probity? It is corruption. So if probity is missing, there will be corruption. Corruption can be of many types. Not only bribery is corruption, even favoritism and red tapeism and seeking for kickbacks, they are also a form of corruption. If you sell the land, if a person sitting on the post, an officer sells the lands of the tribal and give it to, in a very cheap rate, give it to some big businessman for making a mall or a factory or anything, then do you think there is accountability and transparency in that action? There is uprightness and characterfulness in that action. So certainly there is no accountability and transparency and honesty. The government is running with the element of selfishness, not with the element of other regarding. The other regarding element, that simply means that we do not keep ourselves, the officers doesn't keep themselves at the center of everything. They are not selfish, they are other regarding, they are working for the society. And until an officer feels it in his heart that he is working for the society, there will not be any sort of absence in graft. There will be graft, there will be corruption everywhere, because there is no characterfulness. That person does not hold the personality to be honest and have integrity in whatever he is doing or she is doing. Now we have female officers also doing big corruption, very unfortunate. Absence of graft. The second important outcome is rule of law. Absence of graft and rule of law. These are the outcomes of probity in governance. These are the outcomes of probity in governance. Means when a system of government is run, the officers and the instrument through which the system of this government is run is efficient, effective and upright. Why? Because the officers who are running it are characterful and upright, and the instrument through which it is run also have the element of accountability and transparency. What are these instruments, by the way, through which government is run? These are nothing but laws, rules, regulations, policies, fiat, the order passed by an officer, which the superiors, the inferiors or the juniors have to follow. These instruments and the rules around it which we have made have to be efficient, ethical, have to be upright, have to be to the point. For example, there should not be any kind of oral orders given to the subordinate officers. The orders should always be in writing. Why? To ensure accountability. That's the instrument. The biggest instrument through which the whole country is running is the Constitution of India. So, absence of graft, that means there will be less favoritism, less red tapeism, less bribery. The government would be running with socialist principle as is mentioned in the preamble of the Constitution. They will be alleviating poverty rather than pushing the poor people into more depriving poverty. They will be helping the tribals to come into the mainstream. They are helping tribals with their vocation, with their skill upliftment. So, in a way, the society is running in a very efficient manner if the government is running in a very efficient manner. How to ensure this? How to ensure that there has to be probity in governance? So, the probity can be ensured, one through internal mechanism and second through external mechanism. What can be the internal mechanism? These are the internal mechanism. These are the internal mechanism that you have accountability, you have transparency, and that this whole, if I am sitting on that post, I should have a sense of accountability within myself that whatever decision I am taking must be in public good, and nobody should have the capacity to question me because my action is right. I am not speaking with arrogance, but it is right. Why? Because I have done it with at most honesty and integrity and uprightness. Okay, there has to be humbleness in an officer, not arrogance that I am right, whatever I do is right. No, the checks and balances must always be there. An officer must always consult even the subordinate officer about where he is going wrong or where she is going wrong. So, when all these elements are combined together, that's called the internal mechanism through which probity in governance can be ensured. What can be the external mechanism? The external mechanism to ensure probity is instruments such as right to information, instruments such as citizen charter, instruments such as committees, parliamentary committee, cabinet committee, where the officer has to go and answer. For example, public account committee, it works on the report of the Controller and Auditor General of India. If there is some lapse or error found, the officer concerned has to go and answer in front of the committee. So, it in a way ensures accountability, ensures probity in governance, because if there is some lapse or error in expenditure of money, the officer is mindful that our superior officer has to go and answer. So, they will be accountable and transparent when they are spending. So, committees are very important. Similarly, there is a committee for public undertaking, which takes care of all the public sector enterprises the government holds. Then there is a committee for subordinate legislation, the rules and the regulations which are filled up between the bigger structure of the legislation which the parliament makes. Who makes these rules and regulation? The fill-ups. It is nobody but the officers concerned, the bureaucrats. They make the rules and regulations to fill up the legislation, to make it complete. Now, those rules and regulations have to be ethical. Okay, they should not be something which are made with the intention of self-interest, but must be other regarding. Those must be made to make the system more efficient, not corrupt, to make the system more ethical. Okay. So, those committees are very important. Citizen charter is there, right to information is there. Then we have ombudsman, means our Lokpal and Lokayukt. So, these are the external mechanism through which probity in governance can be ensured, and these are the internal mechanisms through which the probity in governance can be ensured. So, that completes our topic probity in governance. The next topic which we will take is the philosophical basis of probity and governance. What are the philosophical basis, from where this is coming and originating? There must be somebody who must have thought about it, that if the government is running and if it has to run very effectively and efficiently, there has to be a instrument, there has to be a ingredient of morality into it. There has to be ethical governance for any government to be efficient and effective. So, what are the philosophical basis? If we see different philosophies, for example, the Greek philosophers. Greek philosophers, Aristotle, Plato, Socrates. Then we have our Chanakya, the Prime Minister of Chandragupta Maurya, very important personality from Indian perspective. Then we have the theory of deontology, which is also called as duty ethics of Immanuel Kant. These are different philosophies, and we are going to see how these philosophies support probity in governance. Then we have John Rawls theory, justice theory. John Rawls. And we have contract theory, contractarianism. Of Locke and Rousseau. Okay. Then we have utilitarianism. John Stuart Mill, John Mill. So what are the bases of these philosophies? If we see the Greek philosophers, they always talked about character of a person. They say the basis of ethics is in the characterfulness of a person. No external element can decide the ethical behavior of a person. The only measure of ethical behavior in a person is nothing but the characterfulness of a person. If a person is characterful, then whatever he is going to do will be ethical. And how will you ensure that a person is ethical? The character of the person is upright. How will you ensure? So they say that a man of a virtue, man of virtue is characterful. They also have several virtues which they have defined, which makes a person characterful, such as a person must have wisdom, a person must have reason, logic, a person must have courage, these are some of the virtue. Prudence, he should have a sense of justice. This makes the four cardinal virtues of the Greek ethics which make a person characterful. One is justice, second is wisdom, third is courage, and fourth is prudence. This logic and reason, prudence means this. So these are the four cardinal virtues. If a person hold these virtues, he is a characterful person, and whatever action he is going to take will be ethical action. So think about a person who is a characterful person and sitting on the post, making law, making rules and regulation. What is going to happen? The instrument through which the government is running will be ethical, and the officer themselves who are sitting and running the government will be ethical. So characterfulness becomes an important element for probity in governance. Characterfulness of officers who are running. So according to Greek philosopher, it always trickles down to an individual and his character. If he is a person of characterfulness, if he has virtue, he have those 4 cardinal virtues of justice, wisdom, courage and prudence, then the person will be ethical. And if he is a government servant, the governance is going to be running in an ethical manner. Similarly, Chanakya, he says the uprightness, truthfulness in the officers are very important. He also created checks and balances. Those are the external elements, but his philosophy tells about the truthfulness and characterfulness, and a person who is sympathetic about the masses. That is the real Raja, who helps and who serves the Praja. That's what Chanakya said. Again, characterfulness comes into action. He talks about dharma, no? So what Greek philosophers say, virtue, in Indian parlance we can say the same thing. Dharma is nothing but virtue. We have dharma for everything, no? You are an officer, you have a dharma. That is, you have several powers, also you have several liabilities and responsibilities and duties. And to be upright is your dharma. To do what is right is your dharma. To help people is your dharma. What will be dharma for a father? To provide and for the children and love his children. What would be dharma for a mother? To educate the kids at home, to love them, to provide and nourish them, and whenever necessary to go out of house and earn money. That is the dharma of a mother. Similarly, there is also dharma of an officer sitting in a post. It only happens when he is characterful. He has those virtues. So this was Chanakya's philosophy, which talks about probity in governance and how probity in governance can be ensured through dharma. Then we have deontology, duty ethics of Immanuel Kant. It says that it is the duty which is the basis of ethics. Every person in the society have some or the other duty. If you are a peon, you have the duty to keep the place clean and ensure that the officer under whom you are working is informed for everything. You do your duty nicely. If you are a judge, you must ensure justice. That is your duty. If you are a civil servant, you must implement the policies of the government in the most efficient and effective manner, with sympathy and empathy in your heart for the masses. Now that is your dharma, that is your virtue, that is your duty. So that is what deontology says. Ethics is based on the duty which you have, and if every person understands their duty, there will be absence of graft and there will be rule of law. That simply means probity in governance can be ensured if the officers start to be conscious about their duty and follow it. Then justice of John Rawls. He says that justice is the basis of ethical behavior in a society. Whatever you do has to be just. If you are taking a bath, let's say, and you can take bath with one bucket of water, but you are wasting the whole tub, which is filled with 20 or 25 buckets of water, are you doing justice? No. In the name of opening up of a shop, if you cut down 20 trees without planting them or without transplanting them somewhere else, will that be considered ethical behavior? Will that be justice? According to John Rawls, no. So every person, it is not only the judges of the court, the district courts and the high court and the supreme court who has to ensure justice, but every person, whatever they are doing in their life, in their mundane daily course, have to ensure justice, and that becomes the basis of the ethical behavior. If let's say you are in a relationship and if you are cheating your girl, is this justice? No, it is not. So justice becomes the basis of ethical behavior in society. Similarly, if you are an officer, you are sitting on a post, you are the secretary of a department, an important department, under you have the signature authority to do many things which impact many people, then you must ensure that all the actions which you take should be flowing out of the sense of justice, that whether my action are doing justice or not, that becomes the basis of ethical behavior. So if a person who is an officer starts to think whether what he or she is doing is justice, then the probity in governance can be ensured very easily. Now comes contractarian. So the contract theory simply means that there is a contract, not expressed but an implicit contract between the governed and the government. That simply means that people have given some power to a authority, and that authority is ruling the people for the benefit of everybody, because it considered that the human nature is very brutish. They are self-centered, and if there is no force above them, they will kill each other. It will be the destruction of the society. In order to avoid the destruction of the society because of the brutish and the selfish nature of a human being, they came together and gave authority to a government which will be governed from within, from the society itself, and they give that power to the political authority so that they should look after the rights of everybody, that they should look whether one person is infringing the right of the other person, and if he is doing so, justice has to be maintained, the person must be punished, so as to avoid and so as to curtail the selfish and the brutish behavior of the human being. So that is why this contract is made. Okay, and if everything runs according to the contract, there will be ethics in the society automatically. So what John Locke says, he is a great propounder of human rights and fundamental rights. John Locke says that individual is important and the rights of the individuals are very important, and any government who cannot ensure the rights of the people is doing an unethical behavior with the masses. So any government, any governance, any establishment under whom the whole society is functioning, they have to ensure the rights of an individual. That is what John Locke says, that the individual right is very important, it must be ensured by the government, and if it is ensured by the government, then the government is ethical, because that was the basis of the contract. No, that you are going to protect our rights. If you are unable to protect our rights, what is the meaning of contract? Then the people can overthrow the government. To ensure that what was written in the contract, or what was, the implicit understanding of the contract was that the government will be protecting the rights of the individual. So, probity in governance can be ensured if the officers sitting understand that the individual rights have to be saved, individual rights have to be maintained in the society. So, ethical governance will be there automatically. Probity in governance can be ensured very easily if the individual rights are saved. He doesn't talk about community rights, he talks about individual right, that every individual is important. So, even the most poor person who does not have any power, and if that person even suffers or dies tomorrow, there will be no problem or no issue in the society, but that person is the citizen of the country and it is the duty of the country to protect his right. So, John Locke goes to every individual. Every individual, does not matter in which caste or which race he is or she is born, but he says that once he has been given the right under the contract and he is the citizen, the right must be followed. Those rights must be protected, and it is the duty of the government to protect those rights. And if any government runs in this way, the probity of governance will be ensured. The probity of governance has to be there in order to protect the rights of the individuals. Then comes utilitarianism. What is utilitarianism? Greatest good for the greatest number of people. This is the basic theory of utilitarianism. J.S. Mill says that this has become the basis of most of the modern democracies in the world, because the policies and the schemes which are made keeps in view that whatever action the government is taking, it will ensure the greatest good for the greatest number of people. That if they bring any policy such as if you have to make dam and you have to construct them, then they weigh the whole situations in a positive and a negative manner, because what can be positives of making a dam? That there will be irrigation facility, through that irrigation facility agricultural growth will be there, agriculture would be booming, and in turn a large section of people will be benefiting because there will be food and there will be earnings, and in turn that will contribute to the growth of the economy. But at the same time, if we see, there will be environmental loss, there can be loss of life also if the dam doesn't work properly and if it gets burst or anything like that. So, any decision which is taken by the government, if it is taken by the view of utilitarianism, means to do the greatest good for the greatest number, it is going to weigh its option that the policy or the decision which we are taking, how many people are going to get impacted, and once the greatest number have been impacted positively, then that decision is taken. If let us say this dam is in a place where there is a tendency of the soil or there is a chance of any sort of disaster, and instead of providing micro irrigation to the agricultural fields and then the growth, agricultural growth and all, it will take lives because of the disaster, then such a project must be shut down, because that is not a decision which is doing the greatest good for the greatest number. So, the probity in governance can be ensured while when you make the rules and regulation, the officers, when they are sitting in the post and they are implementing the policies of the government, the schemes of the government, they should be done, and when the policies and schemes are made, they must be done to ensure the greatest good for the greatest number of citizens. I hope you understood. So, this is the philosophical basis of governance and probity. Now, another topic is transparency and information sharing. What is transparency? and info sharing. Can there be transparency without sharing of the information? Can secrecy bring transparency in the governance? That's not possible. So it is a cycle. If there is transparency, there has to be information sharing, and when the information will be shared regarding the important decisions of the government, the policies of the government, schemes of the government, then it will ensure transparency. I hope you understood this. So how transparency is ensured or how information is shared? Through Right to Information Act. We have this Act 2005. It was made and passed. It is working very efficiently. The Right to Information Act have exemptions also. There were 10 categories which were exempted. That these 10 categories are important, and the information regarding these 10 categories cannot be shared in public. But there was also a clause that if any of that information was in the public interest, it has to be shared. So even the exceptions doesn't matter. So it has given great amount of transparency to the system and has ensured accountability and uprightness in the system. Every time you file a RTI application, you are going to get the information of whatever decisions has been taken, and on the basis of that reply, you can either see whether corruption was done or not. You can go on taking further information, and on the basis of this Right to Information Act, from the replies and the answers which the public is getting, too many cases of corruptions were disclosed. People were dragged to Supreme Court, High Court for all the corruptions which they were doing while they were in government. So right to information is playing a very important role to ensure transparency in the system and accountability in the system. Similarly, citizen charter. Citizen charter ensures that the service which the government has to provide you has to be provided on time. For example, you need a birth certificate or a death certificate or anything. For obtaining a birth certificate, 1 day limit has been fixed, that if you go to the collectorate and form an application for the birth certificate, you will be provided the birth certificate within a day. If it is not done, you can go, and there is also a provision where you can go and complain. There are punishments and penalties for officers for delaying this time limit. What does it ensure? It ensures that the governance becomes graft free, or else for a simple thing like obtaining a death certificate or obtaining a birth certificate, you have to pay bribe, because they will delay the whole process for 10-15 days or maybe 1 year or 2 years, whatever it may be. But citizen charter has brought too much accountability into the system, at least at the grassroots level, where these smaller services which was provided by government to the public were ensured to be done in the specified time. The citizen charter also mentions the list of services to be provided. If you go into a bank, you will see a citizen charter there, and the list of services which are provided by bank will be written, the amount which will be charged is written, and in how much time that service will be provided to you will also be written. If there is any kind of delay, you can go and complain. But the citizen charter is not running efficiently in the country, especially after its advertisement has been down and the country has came back to its original state where the graft and the delay was prevailing. Why so? Because we do not have the system to work efficiently. For example, you want a DD, demand draft, and you go to the bank and you say I need a demand draft, and the demand draft by the bank can be provided in say 4 hours according to the citizen charter, but the officer sitting there says that server is down. What can we do? So such infrastructural problems, or there is no officer to make the demand draft because the concerned officer is on leave. So such infrastructure problem are creating issues in the functioning of citizen charter, or else this is a very important tool to ensure accountability and transparency in the system, and in turn probity in governance. Similarly, work culture. What is work culture? Work culture. What do you mean by work culture? In any organization there is work culture. There is also a word called work ethics. People are talking about the work ethics of Virat Kohli. What is the work ethics of Virat Kohli? That how he works, how much energy and enthusiasm and motivation does that person puts into his work, and the outcome is magnificent. What sort of diet he is taking, what kind of work he is doing, how much skill upliftment he is doing every day, how much he is working on the fitness, at what time does he go to the gym, everything is fixed. It is not haphazard and it is done in a very disciplined way. Now that is called work ethics. And work ethics can be different for different people, but if you have a healthy work ethics, then the outcome will be very good. So similarly, the environments in the offices and the government has work culture, and if the work culture is honest, it ensures accountability, it ensures transparency, then surely there will be rule of law and absence of graft, which simply means probity in governance can be ensured through work culture. Let's say if your boss is a corrupt fellow, how can you ensure accountability and absence of graft within the office? If the top officer is perfect, then there is a higher possibility of ensuring graft freeness, corruption freeness in the system. Not 100%, but there is a great chance. So the work culture comes into way with the combination of work ethics of many people who are working in a closed environment. So if you go to an office, let's say, what is the work culture there? Are women respected? Or if you go there, everybody is passing comments on the women employee. That's also a work culture, but that's not good. You see in these American web series and movies, they go to office and they are smoking in the office, which is usually not allowed in India. That's their work culture. It is our work culture. Maybe they do it because there is too much cold, we don't have that sort of weather in India, but that's their work culture. So work culture combines many things, and the important elements of a work culture is that there has to be transparency and accountability and integrity in the system. And even if a corrupt officer enters into a good work culture, there is a great chance that the person is going to be transformed, because nobody around him is going to tolerate his corruption. So work culture is very important. And even when an upright person goes into a work culture which is corrupt, there are chances that that person will also do and get involved in an activity of graft and corruption. So work culture plays a very important role in maintaining the probity in governance, in maintaining the uprightness and characterfulness of a person. Then another topic is utilization of government funds. What is this? We all pay taxes. Taxes form the most important corpus in hand of the government to run its activity, to pay to all the civil servants, to ensure that the schemes are running properly, to ensure that the food is supplied and all the socialist activities such as health and education have been looked after. All the schemes like Jan Dhan Yojana is running properly or not, or if there is this food supply or the midday meal, which is very important to the for the children coming to school, is it running properly or not? All this needs money, and that money comes from all the taxes which the central government and the state governments levy and then collect. And also there are several public sector units, but most of them does not earn for the government and they are not in profit except few, but still some amount of money come from there also. So these taxes, now once the taxes are there in the hand of government, every officer according to his stature, according to his position, has the signing authority that what amount of money can be spent for what work. For a district collector it is, let's say, this amount of 10 units, that will be more for secretary of the department, will be more for the cabinet secretary, and even more for the cabinet minister, and even more for the prime minister. So this is how the hierarchy of the government is going. But what is this utilization of government fund? Can it be done in an efficient manner or inefficient manner? It can be done in an inefficient manner. There can be leakages, lapses and errors. Some of the money can be given in some activity which is not at all benefiting the people. Some government land can be sent or sold, or sometimes the government when they have the collusion, the officers and the outside people, the corrupt people, they are colluding. If government needs a land, the person is going to sell those lands in great rates. Okay, government pays huge and hefty amount for those land which does not even hold that much value, way above the market rate, and in turn those people pay to the officers who are signing for selling those. So transparency and accountability again is important when the issue of utilization of the government funds are seen. We have already seen that there is a public account committee, parliamentary committee for the public account. What does it ensure? The report of the CAG comes in front of that. Controller and Audit General and all the accounts of the state governments, it ensures that there are no lapses and errors, and if there are any lapses and errors, the officers concerned has to go in front of this committee and answer. That is one of the way of ensuring probity in governance, accountability and transparency in the system. So this is how you utilize the public fund, that it has to be done in an ethical manner, and there has to be some mechanism which can be deployed to ensure that the public funds are utilized in a proper, efficient, ethical and effective way, because that becomes the basis of governance. If you are spending your money, because anyway any country in the world always have limited money, whatever the desires are there, whatever the manifesto says of a political party, it becomes very difficult to ensure everything at a time. Governments, especially in countries like India which are developing, funds are always short, and these short funds, if we start to do corruption and send these, for example, these defense purchases, huge amount of public money is spent on fighter planes which does not cost that much. Or when 2G spectrum, all the co-allocations are done, they are done in a much cheaper rate than what it can be done with the proper bidding. All these corruption cases are signing towards the misutilization of the government funds or the unethical practices of utilization of the government fund. To ensure probity in government, it is very important that the government funds, the utilization of those funds have to be done in an ethical manner, and it can be done in an ethical manner only when the officer sitting on the post is ethical, only through the instrument through which the officer is working is ethical. So again, probity in governance comes when we see the issue of utilization of the government funds. It's also the part of a government, and the government cannot run without money. So whatever money through which it is running has to be done in a proper, efficient and effective way. So, this is the topic, these are the topics which we have studied for today. Now, in the next class we will take up the issue of corruption, which is a very big topic, and it is going to help you immensely in your mains examination and also in your interview. Thank you very much.